Now that you've finished Units 1, 2, and 3, you have the tools to go on to Unit 4. Unit 4 is a collection of solos written over the chord changes to 10 jazz standards from the Great American Songbook. Each solo demonstrates a different application of all the rhythmic, melodic, and harmonic skills that I taught you in those first 3 units. That includes rhythm, syncopation, scat syllables, articulation, accents, scales, arpeggios, color tones, and common chord patterns that you'll hear in these songs. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. And boy, wasn't it a lot of fun to learn? I hope it was for you. I enjoyed writing these exercises as well, and the solos also. The solos, in addition to those applications, will also teach you how to phrase, which is really important. And phrasing is like speaking. Like I'm speaking now. I put pauses in between my sentences. A solo is exactly the same way. It has spaces so that you don't keep talking and talking and talking without a break. So it's like telling a story. Line contour, very important. When I wrote these solos, I wanted you to see how a line, which means a row of notes, move up and move down instead of staying in one place or staying too low or too high. But a good solo, like when you're speaking, vocal inflection moves up and it moves down like this. So each solo has a design of line contour, which is something you want to be aware of when you're learning these solos. Of course, the final element is motivic development. Well, what is that? Ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-bum. That was a motif written by Beethoven, and he developed that and made it a fantastic symphony, number 5. Same thing with jazz. When you're improvising, you come up with an idea, and you develop the idea. So in these solos, you'll see the same phrase repeated, and each time I vary it, I change it just a little bit to make it interesting, and then I move on to another idea. So soloing is like speaking, phrasing, talking about ideas, and developing them. It's exactly the same thing. Now, let me tell you, each standard begins with a statement of the melody. It's very important to hear the original melody under which those chords were written, because sometimes we use those notes when we are soloing. I didn't sing the lyrics. I just use scat syllables because I want you to learn the lyric, and also choose a key for you to sing in. A lot of these standards I wrote in the original keys, and they may be too high or too low, but the solo I wrote is right in the middle, so you shouldn't have a problem with the solo. If you want to sing the melody, you sit down with your private teacher, and you find the right key, which is the right range. All right. So that's for me. What I did was scat the melody with syllables. These syllables are suggested syllables. I prescribed them, I wrote them down, but I encourage you all, as I do all my students, to make up your own syllables. It's really your own language, ultimately. But you can learn a lot of this vocabulary by listening to mine, but also saxophone players, trumpet players, piano players, drummers, bass players, instrumentalists, and other scat singers that have their own languages. So scat syllables is a very personal thing to develop. So these are just for you to use in case you're having trouble articulating some of those phrases. But you'll notice when I'm singing the solo, I'm not looking at those syllables at all. I'm just singing very, very naturally, because scat singing is a very natural thing to do. The arrangement is written for bass, drums, and strings. This is an unusual rhythm section because usually you have piano and guitar. I decided to use strings because I found in all the years I've been teaching that when you sustain a chord or hold it out long, it's much easier for the singer to hear all of the different colors in that chord instead of the piano player or the guitarist comping. And comping means playing the chord very quickly and syncopated patterns, and it's very hard to hear. So I sustained all the strings. You can get a real good feeling of each chord as they connect to one another. Finally, I arranged these songs in a variety of musical styles, including jazz, of course, because they were all written originally, for a lot of them for Broadway musicals, a lot of them were jazz songs. But they work really well with other grooves or other stylistic time feels, including Latin bossa, which is beautiful, even 16th funk, funk shuffle, which we also call swunk, Afro-Cuban, and reggae. And I review all of these styles in a lot of the exercises I do in units 1, 2, and 3. So I think you'll have a lot of fun singing these solos in these different styles. So let me talk a little bit about the lyrics and how important they are when you're singing a jazz standard and improvising. The expression of a song, of course, needs some kind of a language fulfillment. And when you sing that song, the melody makes the initial statement of the song. And we keep that in the back of our mind as we're improvising, even though we're using scales and arpeggios and tensions and all these technical things. In the back of our minds is running that beautiful melody that was originally written, and we draw on that. So it's really important to learn the melody and phrase it in your own way, because when you hear 10 different versions of the song, you'll hear 10 different people phrase it completely differently. So the idea of this is to make the song your own. Now, another thing about the elements of each of these solos. If you're having a little bit of technical difficulty mastering, let's say if you don't read music, it's not a problem. You listen to it over and over and over again. If you read music, you can follow each note. It's all written out, no problem. If you're having trouble articulating anything or understanding what scale I'm using, all that information is listed in units 1, 2, and 3. So you can always go back to those units to find what I used to create these solos. So the important elements of soloing are in unit 1, 2, and 3. Unit 4 is an application of those elements. So you can always go back to the previous units to figure out what scale is he using. Oh, yes, I remember now. Oh, yeah, it's the Mixolydian, jazz Mixolydian. Oh, that's great. That works cool. And then you have a total understanding of what you're doing. So all the information is there at your fingertips. I hope you enjoy it.